Hi, I'm Simon Hill and you're watching Purebred Reds Adelaide United Fan TV.
Hi, I'm Daniel Mullen, former Adelaide United player and Asian Champions League winner with Western Sydney Wanderers. When it comes to any of my soccer needs, I do my shopping here at Soccer Locker. An Australian-owned and operated business, the store is located at Shop 5 of 181 to 183 Grange Road, Findon. Founded in 2017, Soccer Locker was introduced into the market to fulfil all the soccer-related needs of Australians, providing a huge range of quality clothing and equipment ranging from soccer balls, team kits, goalkeeper gear, accessories and much more. Recently arrived stock also includes stunning retro kits from some of our favourite past eras as fans of the world game. Soccer Locker is a specialist in premier range boots, Adidas and Puma, goalkeeper gear and licensed merchandise. Visit us online at www.soccerlocker.com.au with free delivery Australia-wide. So get shopping now at our Findon store, open from 10 a.m. to 5:30 p.m. from Monday to Friday and open Saturdays from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m.
Well played by Thwaite, kept the elbows down too against Laurie. Now here's Cassio injecting himself. Ramsey took it away from him. But he gets a second crack here, Ramsey. Ball across the face. And look who scores! Zenon Caravella with just his second goal in the Hyundai A-League. Scores against his former club. 1-0 to the Reds.
It was always likely to come down that left-hand side. The combination of Cassio and Ramsey has worked very well. Just played a little bit behind Cassio, just very well to Ramsey. Continues runs on as he always does, and a fantastically weighted ball across the edge of the box, just looking for someone to be sliding in. And Caravella actually popping up on that right-hand side of midfield where he's down to play in the right position, and that's a great little finish back inside, making sure the defender couldn't get there, and Glenn Moss had already committed to try and stop that cross.
Didn't his eyes light up, Zenon Caravella? There's one goal when he was on Gold Coast books in 52 games that came against the Melbourne Victory. And now, very early in his Adelaide United career, he's off the mark.
G'day guys and welcome to the Purebred Reds Adelaide United Fan TV. I'm your host Ellis Gelios. It's been a great week for the show. We've got two club champions in a week after Cassio, who came on to preview the game against Melbourne City. I'm now joined by a man that played 37 games for Adelaide United. He's the 2011-2012 club champion, had a decorated A-League career, having clocked 176 professional games, and he's also the founder of the popular football academy in Cairns, the Caravella Football Academy. Of course, I speak of Zenon Caravella. Zenon, welcome to the show. It's been a while since we last saw you play in the A-League, but you've got your academy up and running. You've made a football swan song return in recent times too with Leichhardt in Cairns. It's all happening for you. Tell us how you're going and what you've been getting up to.
Look, thanks very much for having me on the program here, the show. Yeah, look, I obviously finished playing and came back up to Cairns where I was born. It's my hometown, and yeah, I've more recently, as you said, just decided to play again. You know, it's hard to step away from it completely, so I've joined the local club here, Leichhardt, who are also red. I think that might have swayed my decision as well. And yeah, I've of course got my my football academy that's been going for 6 years now as well.
Had such an impressive A-League career in your time down under Zenon, and there's so much to discuss about that. But before we do, we're going to talk about the game tonight. Adelaide United hosting Brisbane Roar, of course, the Roar from your home football state there in Queensland. It's a 5:40 p.m. kickoff this evening as we face Brisbane Roar for the first time since late January. Make sure you catch all the action on Fox Sports or the Kayo Sports app if you're not planning on attending tonight. Now, Zenon, let's get into it. This is our biggest game of the season to date. If we win, we're back to third spot. Lose, and we slide down to sixth, and possibly we'll be out of the finals from next week. The last time these two met, the Roar made very light work of Adelaide. The feeling surrounding Adelaide United after that defeat, that 3-1 loss, was at an all-time low. But we've since then really gone on to impress a lot of people, gone on a very big winning run, and we've become quite a watchable team. But the wheels have steadily started to fall off over the last 5 games. Performances have been bleak, results underwhelming. You spoke to me off camera about how impressed you were when Craig Goodwin was signed to the club again after his last stint, and how good Adelaide United looked from when Craig Goodwin came back into the team. But since then, it's all gone quite pear-shaped. We've failed to win on 2 straight occasions at home, looked the poorer of the 2 sides on both of those occasions. Heavy loss against Melbourne City just last Thursday night. Where's it all gone wrong? It was looking so promising, but it's such a volatile A-League season. There's pretty much everyone struggling for consistency, isn't there, aside from Melbourne City?
Yeah, that's right. I think that's the key thing. It's you need to have that consistency right throughout the season. And from what I see of Adelaide United, there's quite a few young players in that team as well. And I think with that, is sometimes the tendency, I guess, for results not to be so consistent. But in saying that, it's fantastic that they're bringing through these young players and they're promoting young players. I think that's a huge thing for the club. And look, and when it does click, they play a beautiful brand of football, and it's great to watch. And as I said to you before, when Craig did come back, he made an immediate impact on the team. He's got a lot of experience. Played with Craig a couple of years at the Jets, and he adds a lot to the team. But look, back to the question, I think there's times in a season where teams' form can dip, and it's just about picking it back up at the right time, and trying to put those runner results together, especially at home.
Yeah, well said. Can't disagree. Now, it's an old cliche that a short turnaround means a team that is coming off a poor result has no time to dwell on it. How much do players actually view short turnarounds in a positive light, particularly when the team's in a rut? Obviously, we just played Melbourne City on Thursday and lost heavily. You've been in many dressing rooms over your time. Is it a thing that coaches often use and players, do view positively, where it's just a case of forget this one and on to the next one in a couple of days?
Yeah, I think it is. I mean, as a player, you don't want to sit too long and think about the negative things. And of course, from every game, there's a lot of positives to take out of it. There's a lot of things to work on, things to take into the next game. So, me personally, when I played, if I didn't have a great game or we'd lost, I was really itching and excited for the next game to come around. So you could make amends, and so I think most players would enjoy that, and would hope for a quick turnaround. So yeah, I think it's something that most teams and most players, I think, would find very important.
And I've just got to say, Zen, and it very much translated into how you played on the pitch, because I recall distinctly during that 2011-12 season, we were in a real bad rut of form, and there was one occasion, Sydney FC at home, you were the only player who looked to move the ball forward every time you were in possession. I recall it distinctly. So that positivity, it shone through on the pitch for you as well, and we're getting it right now in your analysis and your preview of the game here. Now, I've got to ask you about Tommy Juric. He's someone that you played against in the A-League, obviously a big name, a Socceroo as well. Many fans in Adelaide have been agitating to see the back of him in place of younger striker Cassini Yengi. Now, Juric has been ruled out for a number of weeks. Cassini, the youngster at Adelaide United, real big body on him. He's quite talented too. He's had some real good highlights this year. Put the Melbourne victory back 4 on their backsides in Melbourne about 6 or 7 weeks ago. Became a bit of a cult hero instantly. Can he lead the line for Adelaide going forward? And why do you think it hasn't really worked with Juric? Obviously, it did at one stage. The very season after you left, in fact. Tommy Juric came and was excelling at Adelaide United all the way back then. But why do you think it hasn't really worked for him?
Yeah, look, I mean, I guess in with fans and clubs, fans can be very fickle, and that's just part of the game. Look, as for Tommy Juric, I'm not quite sure what it could be. Multiple factors why it's not quite working out. But I mean, he is a quality player, and that's something that everyone knows. And look, I think he adds a lot to the team. He's a very difficult player to handle, whether it's a stylistic thing with the way they're playing, or other factors that I'm not across. But look, I would just urge the fans. I mean, they themselves have their own opinions, but I think patience, is needed for players like that. As I said, he's a very difficult player to handle. Can bring a lot to a team. So you've I guess got to take the good with the bad and hope things turn around.
Wise words. And just on Kosmina Yengi, you obviously would advocate for youth, being in charge of an academy, an important role you've got in the community in Cairns. Such a large number of footballers playing the game there as well. And we're going to touch more on this later on in the interview. But yeah, you made the mention earlier on in the preview about how impressed you are with all the youngsters coming through at Adelaide. He's been one of the big headline young players to come out of the state who's now really excelling. What have you made of him, and can he lead the line for Adelaide going forward?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, when you see him, he's a dangerous player. He's very direct, likes to take players on, and is always, testing the back four of the opposition. So, look, yeah. When you're young, enthusiastic, you're playing without fear. That's what it looks like anyway. I do believe he can lead the line, but again, it's always good to have an old head there, and I guess that's the that's the beauty of having a young team and some old heads around. You get to chop and change and see how things go as the season progresses. But yeah, he's definitely an exciting player, and someone for sure that can be dangerous up top for Adelaide.
Yes, we'll move on. So I've got to ask you about Brisbane now. They've really revived their season, enduring just one defeat in their last 9 games. Can the Roar go on and really shake up the finals race this season? And furthermore, what have you made of their current style and identity under the local coach, Warren Moon? You know him well. You played against him. Obviously, you're going to bump into him on various occasions, being in the Queensland football circles there these days. Raw, they've gone through some real stylistic changes over the years. What do you make of how it's all going under Warren Moon?
Yeah, look, I really enjoy the way the Raw's playing under Warren. He's a coach that is very meticulous, very detailed, and you can see that on the pitch when they play. And as I said, it's great to see Aussie coaches coaching the A-League and doing well, and especially young coaches. So yeah, look, love what he's doing there, and the players, you can see they're enjoying themselves on the pitch. And look, the A-League is one of those competitions you just don't know where things can go when a team gets their tail up and a bit of momentum behind them. Yeah, you just don't know, but I definitely believe there can be a contender come the season's end.
How impressed are you with Dylan Wenzel-Halls? Can he lead the line for Australia one day?
Look, I really enjoy watching him play again as well. It's those players, they're direct. They take responsibility in that final third. Likes to take players on, likes to shoot. And as a coach, I think that's something you want from your players leading the line. And look, he's got that little bit of old school mongrel as well. He doesn't stop. He's always there nipping at people's heels. And, that's something I don't think you can really teach, So, yeah, look, as for Australia, yeah, I mean, he's just got to keep performing and doing what he's doing. And again, I'm sure he can take his career to great heights.
I've got to ask you for a prediction here, Zenon. Who comes out on top? Does your ex-club win this game and break what has been a real disappointing patch of form recently?
Look, I'm going to go with the Raw, only because they've got the momentum there, and they're playing really well at the moment. So look, I'm going to say the Raw is my prediction. Let's hope the Reds win.
We like to hear that, and I love hearing people not sit on the fence when it comes to a prediction. Zenon, we're going to get into talking about the man behind the player and your career as well, what a decorated A-League career you had. Before we get into any of the actual crux of what you got up to in your professional career, I want to ask you about your introduction to football. As a Cairns boy, many people might be aware of the fact that you're the nephew of Australian football legend Frank Farina and, of course, the former Brisbane Roar coach. But what was it that first got you kicking the round ball?
Obviously, my father had a lot of influence on that, but I think it was the fact that my uncle was Frank Farina. As a young kid, you grow up, you watch them play, you go see games. He used to send me shirts and balls and boots and all that kind of stuff when I was a kid. So I guess that kind of inspired me to play at first anyway, and then try and make a career out of it. So I think that's where I started. Started very early, and I think I was still in nappies at the time when I was first playing. But yeah, it's always been a passion and something I never really lost or shook off. So yeah, I think it came from having a family member already playing.
It would certainly help a lot. Are there any standout memories from when you were real young, watching Frank Farina play? Does anything jump out straight away when you think back to those earliest years that you've got?
I remember we got sent a cassette from him back in the VCR days, and on there was his highlights from Bruges. And I remember sitting there when it came in, and my mum picked it up from the post office, and I sat there at the TV, put it in straight away, and pressed play and watched the goals and the crowd, and it was just something that really stood out in my mind. And I thought, I would love, to play in front of crowds one day. And so that was one of the moments. But I remember as well his bicycle against Canada in one of the qualifiers there. That was a huge moment. Amazing goal. You still get goosebumps now when you think about it and hear the crowd. And look, I think he also scored a goal. He did score a goal, in fact, against Sydney United in the old NSL grand final for the Strikers. So, yeah, I mean, he had an amazing career, my uncle, and you could go on about the different things that he'd done, but I guess those three there are things that I always think back straight away when I think of my career.
Yeah, great stuff. It must be quite special to have that kind of an influence. Your professional career began at Sydney Olympic, firstly in the old NSL and later in the New South Wales NPL. It's a big club, Zen, and tell us what these formative years were like for you at Olympic.
I think they were the most important years of my life, to be honest. I'd just come from Cairns, and I went to, as you said, one of the biggest clubs in Australia at the time. A club with a lot of history, a lot of heritage, Greek heritage. And I think, for me, actually, I might be more Greek now than I am Italian, And, there was just a lot of things besides the football that I took away from it. I got to see, a beautiful culture up front. We'd have souvlakis after the game, barbecues. It was a really family-orientated club. But I think just being immersed in that environment from a young age, it really shaped me as a player. And, I got to play against and with some amazing players as well. So that helped me with the development of my game. But a huge time in my life. I started there when I was 12, when we first moved from Cairns. So, and then went through to win a championship with them as well. So, look, it was a really important time in my life.
Let's talk about some of those players that you played with. Obviously, the NSL was starting to really decline during the early 2000s, but the players coming through were some of the best generation we've ever had. So at a big club like Sydney Olympic, you must have been in awe, rubbing shoulders with some of them, obviously. Tell us about some of those memories you've got, the biggest names you played with or against, for that matter, at Olympic.
Yeah. I remember, coming from the youth team and, getting a call, I think at the time from, must have been Peter Raskopoulos, who was the technical director, that said they're going to sign me for the first team. And I think I was 17 years old. So, I was quite young in the first team environment. And, we had players in there, Tom Pondeljak, Ante Milicic, Ante Juric, Troy Halpin, Lindsay Wilson, Jeremy Harris, the list goes on, and Clint Bolton was the keeper at the time, so Nick Carl. So it was just a huge team. It was, I often think that team there would be a very, very good side in the A-League, if not, one of the best teams. So look, to come into that environment and trade day in, day out with these players and was again very special and something that I'll always remember. So the NSL, and not just Olympic, a lot of the teams in the old NSL had these types of players. I think very different types of players than what the A-League has now, but it was definitely a great moment to get that phone call and be part of the first team, especially since I came through as a young kid from 12.
You were there for a very long time. So was there anyone that you sort of bonded with the most and hung out with off the pitch at Olympic?
Look, yeah, there was a lot of times where you'd be training 2 times back then as well. So I guess most of it was you'd train in the morning and then everyone would go out as a team together and have lunch and then go back and train again in the afternoon. It was a full-time environment, the old National League. So, I hung around with a lot of different players. I still keep in touch with a lot of players now that I play with. But yeah, you're always together with everyone, I guess. But I was very close with the player that was also there that I forgot to mention, who was Greg Owens. And I think Greg also played for Adelaide at a point in time.
He most certainly did, yes.
Yeah, but a very, very good friend of mine, Greg.
Great stuff. We might ask you about him later on. So moving forward, you're eventually scouted and later signed by New Zealand Knights to play in the inaugural A-League season. Now, this must have been a bit bittersweet for you, knowing that you were back on the national stage, but it was to be with a perennial struggler in the Knights who only lasted for 2 seasons. So take us all the way back to 2005, the eve of the A-League. We know that, retrospectively, New Zealand Knights struggled massively and went on to fold and were replaced by Wellington Phoenix eventually. But why do you think it was the case that the club struggled so much? Was there a real issue with the travel side of things? Did the club acknowledge that as being a very big barrier and something that would potentially make life very hard for New Zealand Knights going into this professional league in Australia? And what was the mood like initially at the Knights?
Look, the mood initially was great. I mean, it was a startup club, I guess, like all of them, and everyone was excited to be part of a new club, a new beginning, new A-League. Because a lot of people don't probably remember, but the NSL was disbanded. I think at the time, clubs were struggling. Essentially went to the wall, the competition. So everyone for a year or so was looking for gigs. A lot of players went to Singapore, to Malaysia, to keep playing, and I was playing in the local Sydney NPL or equivalent, and then that popped up, New Zealand Knights. But at the start, it was an exciting time, of course, but it was, as we all know, it was, I think, it was a terrible season from a playing point of view. But I don't think it was anything to do with the travel. I mean, we had one of the best strength and conditioning coaches. We had a great team of people behind the club. But, that doesn't translate to results on the field. So, it was a really bad season, but, I was out of there in the second year. So, in a way, that was a bit of a relief. But, it wasn't a great season.
What do you think it was about the Auckland market that ensured that crowds weren't really that good for New Zealand Knights? Because we know in the early A-League seasons, crowds were really rising, particularly with the success of the Socceroos in the World Cup. But it didn't translate for the Auckland market. We know that Wellington have gone on to really be a staple of that city and that sporting market, but it just never really worked in Auckland. Do you know why that might be? Because obviously a very healthy population and they love their sports there. It might not be so much the round ball as being the most popular sport, but they do love their sports, the Auckland faithful. Why didn't it work with New Zealand?
Look, I think results are a huge thing in any kind of sport, especially a sport that that doesn't dominate the country. I mean, I never forget going there how massive rugby union was. It was just everywhere, and just a huge sport there. So to be able to engage people to come and watch the round ball, which there was a lot of people that love the game, but I think it comes down to results. Match day atmosphere. You got to be winning games. It's got to be fun for the fans, and they've got to see their team winning. So, look, we I think won one game in 21. So a lot of people just didn't bother coming to watch and support, and that's just the way it is.
Fair enough. I guess the next move for you was one that many people might not have been expecting. We don't often see many Australians go to the Dutch second division, but it's a very, very good standard. Now, after 21 games, you were to do that with the Knights. You moved on to a club that was at that time known as FC Omniworld, now known as Almere City. You went on to play 50-odd games for them, Zenon. Talk to us about your adventures in Dutch football.
Yeah, well, it was a funny one, that one, how it came up. There was a scout there from Holland who was in fact looking at someone else that he'd been following through England and whatnot, and this young player, his name was Ben Collett. He was playing at the Knights with us at the time, and this Dutch scout came out to watch him, and obviously he took a liking to myself, and spoke to me after the game and said, I want to take you to Holland. So that was something I obviously thought a lot about and thought it was a great opportunity. And so I said, absolutely. When do we go? So look, it was right place, right time. And that's why I say to players all the time now, you've got to be playing well all the time, because you just never know who's watching, who's in the grandstand. So it was an amazing experience in Holland, and I stayed there for 2 seasons and made the decision to come back home. But it was a brilliant place for football. I learned so much there, and was something I'll always remember fondly.
What a sliding doors moment that is for you. Does that kind of personify what you're like as a bloke, Zenon? Like just sort of happy-go-lucky, take any opportunity that you get, even though it does sound like, quite a risk to travel so far away without knowing much about where you're going. Talk to us about what the club was like and the culture of the club there, and whether you brush shoulders with any big names of the Dutch game. Yeah,
the club was great, and they were very welcoming. It was just a great time. I love the culture in Holland with football, especially. It's just everywhere. It's a national sport, I guess. A new player coming to a foreign country. The great thing I think about Holland is that everybody spoke English. So it wasn't such of a culture shock for myself. The weather was extremely cold in winter, but overall it was a place where I think there's a lot of emphasis on youth development. A lot of emphasis on tactics, I guess, involved in the game, and that's something that I always remember. And as I said before, I learned a lot in Holland. And being in such a small country, I guess in football, where it's such a big sport, you do get a chance to meet lots of different people. Our coaches were all internationals, big players. I bumped into Ruud van Nistelrooy at our club as well. He was there. I think he was doing a coaching course at the time. And I played with Usama Asaidi, who went on to play for Liverpool.
Yeah. Correct.
He started with us. Another boy went on to play for Galatasaray, and a whole host of players that went on to play in the first division in Holland. So, look, there's a lot of very good players, and all the time you're playing with and against some great players.
The only other Aussie I can think of in Holland around that era would have been Jason Kalina. Did you guys ever connect at all?
No, I didn't. I didn't know Jason when I went to Holland, but obviously played with him again, or played with him later on at Gold Coast.
Yep.
And of course, Brett Holman was there while I was in Holland, and he was someone that had a fantastic career there. I guess those two there kind of were trailblazers in the Dutch really loving Aussies, and of course Brett Emerton, can't forget that. So there was quite a bit of excitement whenever an Australian player came to Holland, and coaches really love the Australian mentality. So yeah, met quite a few Aussies over there as well.
So after 50 odd games, I'm guessing the reason you decided to return to the A-League was because of the opportunity to come back to your home state of Queensland. Gold Coast United, a startup club. So much excitement around them when they first entered the league. Zenon, Miron in charge, Miron Bleiberg, obviously the interesting owner that is Clive Palmer as well. So was it the pull to come back home that really sort of got you over the line? Because obviously, you're playing consistently at a good level in Holland.
Yeah, look, I had the opportunity to stay there as well, and I think my wife now, it was my fiance at the time, we were living there together, and I got a phone call from Miron and said, look, I'm starting this club. I want you to be a part of it. And my wife and I were getting married that year back home in Australia. And so, we sort of made the decision to say, right, let's go and go back home again, get married, and, start another chapter and see where it goes. So it wasn't an easy decision because I really enjoyed my time there in Holland. But, I guess you hear this all the time, the lure of coming back home, playing in front of family and friends, I think it's an easy, in a way, it's an easy kind of thing to do. And I think we're very lucky to have that ability with the A-League. So that's how I ended up back at Gold Coast.
You came to Gold Coast in the absolute prime of your career. So many exciting players, like we mentioned, Jason Kosmina being signed, a host of really other good A-League players as well. Christian Rees, the SA boy, is another one that springs to mind. Obviously, a real time in which you must have been buzzing, Zenon, because Gold Coast, very, very competitive in their first year, underachieved really considering the nature of results and the strength of the team as well. And obviously you had 2 really good years there.
Yeah, look, I loved my time at the Gold Coast. What an amazing place to play in, first of all. We did have, we had a fantastic team. And as you said, I think we should have done, we should have done a lot better. I mean, we were one game away, I think, from winning the premiership, and we lost to North Queensland Fury at the time. And look, it's just one of those things. But we had a great team. I think at that time we were playing one of the best brands of football, I guess you could say. But yeah, it just wasn't meant to be. And after 2 years there, I moved on. But look, we had Miron Bleiberg, who was obviously a very big personality. And then on top of that, we had Clive Palmer, who also a big personality, and more often than not would be involved in parts of the game and in parts of the club where he shouldn't be. And I think that also had an influence on a lot of things to do with the football side. But that's Clive, and that's the way he chose to run his club. And so yeah, it was a amazing time, but a very interesting time. And I remember one of my friends actually said that he likened it to being in Alice in Wonderland at times. The things that would happen and the things that would be said, and it was wild at times.
Are there any PG stories you can tell us about erratic Clive Palmer behaviours, or any real memorable sort of away trips you went on with Gold Coast? Anything that you'll sort of take to the grave with you in terms of just sort of funny, happy memories?
Yeah, look, a lot of different memories, a lot of funny stories. I mean, Clive is he's a very generous guy, and as I said, just a big personality. But he used to rock up in all kinds of unbelievable cars, one of a kind Ferraris. But I think one thing that I always found hilarious, and still do now, is that, whenever players weren't playing, if they were injured or suspended or Miron just flicked them to the grandstand, Clive would actually get them and put them in a suit and get them to drive around, foreign delegates from China or from different countries. So, players were also players, but then on the side they were chauffeurs. So, the good thing was they got to drive amazing cars and whatnot. But yeah, I always found that was hilarious, and I was disappointed I never got a gig there.
Well, I mean, bittersweet, because at least you were playing. But there you go. He was probably looking after his politics where he could too. Now, I've got to ask you, Zenon, were the North Queensland Fury ever in for you? Because it would have made perfect sense. Obviously, you're from that region. So, yeah, the Fury coming into the league at the same time as Gold Coast, was there ever interest from them?
Not that I remember. No, I don't think there was. I'd signed for Gold Coast United very early on while the season was still running. So I think by memory, I think North Queensland put a squad together very, very late in the piece, whereas I'd signed already while the previous season was running. So, I didn't hear from North Queensland Fury, no. Far too hot up there anyway for me. So forget it.
There you go. Dodged a bullet. Well, as one door closes, another door opens. The move away from Gold Coast enabled you to sign for Adelaide United. And what an amazing time it was that you had here, Zen. And I just, before we get into it, and obviously the heights that this move took you to, winning the Club Champion Award in your debut season, talk to us about how this move came up.
Well, the move came up through the coach at the time, which was Rinnie Coolin. I mean, Rinnie was a coach in Holland when I was there, and was I think a coach in one of the teams that I was regularly playing against. And so when Rinnie came to Australia, I guess he'd remembered me from my time there in Holland, and thought that I could do a job for them. And so when my contract came up, or was about to come up, I got a phone call from the club, Michael Petrillo, and I guess then we started negotiating from there, and I ended up there, I think, through Rinnie Coolin.
Did he have to sell the city to you at all? Obviously, you'd be aware of the heritage and football culture that we have here in South Australia. So many golden years back in the NSL with Adelaide City and West Adelaide, and you would have played here, very, very huge amount of times across your career before you came here as a player. But the city, was that a selling point at all to you?
No, everyone around the league that I'd spoken to said, it was an amazing club. I think Nick Bianco at the time was the owner. And, people would say players would say it's unbelievable. The fans are brilliant. The club's great. It's a family club. And, so I didn't think twice. And especially, when you've got a coach that wants to sign you and appreciates you as a player, I think that's really important. So that obviously helped in my decision making as well, to sign with the Reds. But yeah.
Off the pitch, did you enjoy life in Adelaide town? What did you get up to? Did you have any sort of favourite eateries around the place? Obviously, Italian background. I'm sure you got around to all the Italian restaurants back in the day.
Yeah, my wife is her father is in the wine industry. So, he'd always tell us places to go where he supplied wine or he knew a lot of people there. I loved the markets in town there.
Yeah.
Used to go to a beautiful little Italian place there. And I think I could even at one point buy their sauce here in Cairns. So that, brought back a whole range of memories. But love the markets there. And there's also a beautiful restaurant where a good friend of mine runs, George's on Weymouth.
Yeah, it's
and that was
awesome.
I really love that place. And yeah, it was. But I mean, anywhere in Adelaide is great for food, right? Food, wine. Yeah, it's a beautiful place to be, I guess.
Great stuff. Let's talk about on the pitch when it comes to Adelaide United. For you, a highly illustrious season, winning the Club Champion award, quite a remarkable achievement to do it in your first season at the club. But for Adelaide United, not quite the same level of success as a collective, Zenon. So just talk to us about the parallels there. Obviously, you really excelled. Still, a great memory I've got is that goal you scored against Gold Coast, and you were happy enough to sort of celebrate too, which is great. But talk to us about why it sort of never worked as a team, because Rinnie had full license to make all the changes he wanted to make. He made a big deal of the fact that he wanted to change the culture of the team from what was a successful side the very season before. So given that he had a free reign to sort of bring his own players in and do what he wanted to do, you know, why did it not work? Because we still had on paper a very good squad.
Yeah, look, it was a really tough start to my time in Adelaide, especially the first 10 games. I think Rinnie got sacked in the 11th game, you know, which was, you know, was very upsetting for me because I had a great relationship with Rinnie, and despite the results not going our way, Rinnie was a great guy, and on paper that Adelaide United team was a big team. There was a lot of international players, a lot of experienced players.
Got Vidicic back, Jite back as well.
Vidicic, Jite, you know, we had some big players there, and for it not to work was just. It was really upsetting. Was a really tough time for myself as well. But I often think back and, you know, I don't know what it was. It just never clicked. It never really clicked. And, you know, things were, you know, done off the field. You know, signings were made. You know, players, I think, a few things that happened in the off season may have upset the apple cart, and I think, look, I'll put a lot down to that kind of thing. You know, I remember Rinnie gave the captaincy to John McCain over Eugene Galakovic, who was the captain at the time, and you know, I think, you know, looking back, that may have been something that, you know, divided the change room. Because Eugene obviously was a fantastic captain, and yeah, look, it's just little things you think about, and you look back and say, you know, maybe that could have been different, or who knows? But it was a great squad of players, but a team that just never really put it together, at least anyway in that first part of the season.
Winning the Club Champion award at the end of that season, where does that rank in your list of personal achievements?
Yeah, it was a big moment for myself, especially because it was such a tough time there. I mean, I'd had, you know, two very good seasons at Gold Coast, and, you know, was hoping to continue on that trajectory, I guess. And then, you know, you go to a new club and it's the complete opposite. You know, so I guess to get a reward like that at the end, an individual achievement, you know, it was a big highlight. But, you know, you also wish that as a collective, we've done better as a team. You know, with teams that are playing well, I always think that there's every chance that individuals within that team are, you know, able to, you know, progress to another club or to another country, or you know, somewhere else. It's difficult when a team's not playing well. It's hard to stand out. I think it's hard to keep that momentum going. So yeah, I was very happy to receive that award.
Let's talk about what happened the following season. John Kosmina came in. Well, actually, he came in when Rooney Cullen was sacked in that season in which he won the Club Champion Award. But then he took the full reins going on for the next season there in 2012-13. Now, it was a really good start to the season. We really looked to have re-energized the squad, playing some very good football, but you departed and John Kosmina departed around the same time, which was interesting. And obviously, I'm going to assume there was just a better opportunity waiting for you in Newcastle.
Look, Cosy, I see Cosy now, every now and then, and we talk and have a good relationship. I've actually sent a player to his school now that he's a coach of, a boy from Cairns. But look, you get the benefit of hindsight. I don't think Cosy and I sort of saw eye to eye on certain things. I mean, I was, I'd received, club champion from him, I guess, along with other people that decided that, I get the award, and then, move into the next season and didn't really feature in any part of the games really. And, so it's a hard thing to take when you're a player where you're coming off a good season individually and to the next season not play. And, football's a short career. So obviously I had to look elsewhere, and that's when I asked for my release and went to the Jets. But look, as I said, it's not a criticism of Kosmina or anything. It's just football. And at times, when a coach and player are not on the same page, that's, I guess, what happens.
Here's what you had to say upon leaving the club. I really enjoyed my time at Adelaide United, and I leave this city and club with fond memories. Unfortunately, this season hasn't worked out for me as I'd hoped, but I'm grateful that the club has followed me to pursue an opportunity elsewhere in search of more regular football. I'd like to thank the Adelaide fans for their support and wish the boys the very best for the rest of the season. Now, what really troubles me about it, Zenon, is just, it's quite extraordinary. You come in and win the Club Champion Award, and then, as you say, you're not really featuring in the very next season. It's quite bizarre, but football just works that way sometimes. Newcastle, the next move for you. Talk to us about your memories there at the Jets. Obviously, a difficult period, but at least you're back on the park and doing what you do best personally.
Yeah, I remember I hadn't played for Adelaide for a long time, months, and I was trying to keep myself fit, trying to keep myself motivated, and my manager called me up at the time and said, "Look, the Jets really want to sign you. Are you interested?" And I said, "Well, of course, I need to play." So went there, and look, I really loved Newcastle. I had a completely different view of Newcastle before I went there. But look, I loved it. The squad was great. It was a really hard-working squad, and I loved that. I really enjoyed that aspect of the game. And I felt like that squad had that, across nearly all the players. So I love that part of the culture of Newcastle. And then, yeah, look, I had a great time there and really enjoyed my football. I have a new lease on life, in a way.
Yeah, you spent 2 seasons there. It was to be, though, the last time that you would play professionally. Now, I've got to ask you, Zenon, you decided to hang up the boots at a very early age, and it's probably a great shame in that sense. But obviously, with the way things are in Australia, it's a case of looking after yourself as best you can and setting yourself up. So you did decide to hang the boots up at a very early age, in your early 30s. Tell us why.
Hey, look, I think I was 31 at the time. I still had another year left on my contract, and obviously. I had a very close relationship with my father, and he had a business here in Cairns, a backpackers hostel, and he had gotten to the point where he wanted to step away, and obviously he was asking me if I would come in and learn the ropes and help run it for him. And look, I did a lot of reflecting. It was a very, very difficult decision. I sat down many times with my wife. It was a very emotional time in my life as well. And I made the decision to give away my career to come back and help my father, who, had given me, everything, I guess, in as well as my mum. But my father, from a point of view where he'd train me, try and give me as much opportunities as he could to realise my dream, and I felt like it was my time to help him live his best life. So very tough decision, but I did come back and look, and he passed away within a month of me coming back. So I did going back to Newcastle and finishing off that year that I gave away. Which in a sense was great for me. It allowed me to grieve and just enjoy playing football. But yeah, I guess I retired to help, well, for my father. But yeah, it is what it is. Yeah.
Very selfless decision, and I should just mention that you had a stint playing for Cairns FC in and around that time too. But as has been the case on various points throughout your career, when one door has closed, one has opened. You went on to found the Caravella Football Academy. It's had a great amount of success, very, very popular, and it's an important region too. You cover so much distance, obviously, in that far northern Queensland area, and Cairns, the service area that you have with your academy. So talk to us all about how long you'd been planning this and what it was like to establish this academy, which has gone on to have so much success and have so many people talking about it on social media.
Yeah, it's a funny one because, after everything that happened with my father and leaving my career, I didn't watch a game. It was 2014 World Cup, and I couldn't even bring myself to turn the TV on and watch the football. It would make me physically sick to watch football. And as time went on, my wife suggested that I should try and stay involved somehow in the game, and I remember I said, okay, I'll give it a go, and I started doing a little bit of one-on-one coaching with some players, and I never had a vision of myself becoming a coach, but obviously I always had a passion for football, and I think I just grew that love for a different side of the game through these little coaching sessions, and I guess that's how the academy started from there.
So talk to us about how much it's grown in that time, and going forward, whether you see yourself potentially taking all the knowledge that you've gained, coaching at a grassroots level, and potentially trying your luck at more of a semi-professional or even professional level in the coaching ranks.
Yeah, look, I'm always, looking to improve and challenge myself. I was like that as a player, and I'm certainly no different as a coach. So look, one day I would entertain the idea of maybe stepping into a professional setup again. But I really enjoy coaching the younger age groups. I think. Arsene Wenger said it in one of his interviews, I think many years ago, that, a footballer is like a house where you have to get the foundations right before they can ever, think about moving through the level. So I love that aspect of being able to try and, for the players that are coming through, to try and give them that foundation where I can. And then obviously, they'll pick up a lot of different things off other coaches as well. But I really enjoy that. I think it's a huge and very important part of a young footballer's development, just to get that foundation right. And then from there, the finishing touches with the more senior players and in the environments that they head into.
Talk to us about how people can get involved in your academy in case they're watching and they are interested.
Yeah, look, if you are from the region, I guess, caravellafootballacademy.com.au is our website, or you can follow Caravella FA on Instagram. But yeah, if anyone's watching or is interested, our academy ranges from beginners right through to players that have been playing for a long time. So we try and cater for everyone and try to make it as enjoyable as possible. I think that's a big thing of what we try and do. Get kids playing and enjoying it, and I guess then it's up to them to see how far they want to take it and how much effort they want to put in to keep progressing.
Brilliant work, Zenon, and we hope that it continues to grow. Now, in 2020, you dusted the boots off, signing for Leichhardt in Cairns. Talk to us about it. Obviously, must have been quite an emotional decision to make, even though it's obviously not at a professional level. Still stepping back out onto that green field, and you just very much so eloquently talk to us about how much it pained you to even think about football some 6-7 years ago. So talk to us about why, firstly, and how it's gone since you're still a player there now, going into 2021.
Yeah, I'd been asked a couple of times from a few different people if to see if I'd wanted to play again, and I'd always said no. Don't have the time at the moment, or obviously busy coaching the academy. But I did get a phone call one night. I think it was 8:30 at night, and the president of the club gave me a call and said, Zen, I just thought I'd ask, would you come back and play? And I said, you know what, you must have called me at a good time, because I wouldn't mind that. So, and I didn't have any vinos at the time, so I was completely coherent in the mind, and I just thought, you know what, I'm going to give it a go again. So I did, and look, I've loved it so far. It is a commitment again, because you like to be involved all the time at training and be there when the team's there. I think that's a bit difficult at times, but being around a changing room again, trying to help with young players where possible, and just being on the field is, it's always a special thing. I love it.
That's great stuff, Zen, and we very much wish you all the very best with how that all unfolds. I just want to quickly ask you about the day-to-day running of the hostel that you and your wife, Kat, operate. You talked to us about the fact that your father used to run this business. So what's it like having that thrown into the dynamic when you're running an academy and still playing as well?
Yeah, so look, just to clarify, my wife runs the academy side of things, so she's not involved at the hostel. But yeah, it's not so much now. Obviously, the industry's changed a lot during COVID, and we're not really operating, I guess. But yeah, it was difficult at the start, because you're trying to balance two things. You're trying to, I said to my father, I'm gonna help with this hostel, and I wanted to make sure I tried to continue that when he was gone. And at the same time, I wanted to try and build something that I was really passionate about. So in a way, I was very torn at the time, trying to keep and manage two things. But yeah, it was, I'm still, I guess, trying to find that balance with that as well. But yeah, it was a bit of a roller coaster time.
Well, as we hope for everyone's sake, COVID eventually goes away sometime sooner rather than later, so that can all get back up and running for you. But it'd be remiss of me not to ask you about Frank Farina and your relationship with him now, Zenon, obviously going from being a young boy, getting VHS tapes of his highlights, to now both being retired ex-professionals. Do you still catch up regularly and talk about the round ball?
Yeah, look, I speak to my uncle, every now and then. Obviously, we're close and we talk. But yeah, I mean, he's my uncle. He's always someone who's great to pick his brains, on lots of different topics in football. And yeah, so whenever I feel the need, to ask him something, I'll pick up the phone, and it's a nice thing to be able to talk to people like that and pick their brains on certain issues. So yeah, we speak every now and then.
Why could the Sydney FC connection never happen? Because there were rumours that you were going to sign to Sydney FC. Obviously, Del Piero came, and Frank Farina was the coach. Was it just never able to work for whatever reason, Zenon, or was Sydney just a rumour that was only a rumour?
Look, I think it was a rumour. I didn't really have any intention of leaving Newcastle. I was very happy there. But he did try to sign me before I went to the Gold Coast when he was the coach of the Roar, but that didn't happen. And look, you look back in your career and, there's lots of different things that, I would change anyway. Take a risk here and sign with that club over there maybe. And look, lots of different things. But I think that one was just a rumour. But yeah, it was, never happened.
Well, Zenon Caravella, such a decorated A-League career, still getting up to so much off the pitch and still on it now in 2021. It's been so good to catch up with you and hear all about your story outside of football, as well as the great career that you had. We wish you and your wife and your family all the very best with the academy and everything else. And we'll look out for any new sort of headlines that come up regarding Zenon Caravella. It's been great catching up, mate, and all the very best with everything.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me on. Love chatting about football and good luck to the Reds for the rest of the season. And we'll speak soon.
Beautiful work, Zenon, and thanks so much for watching, guys. We'll see you next time. Enjoy watching the game tonight. Thanks a lot.